Good evening. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for joining me as we spend this next hour together. As always, I do hope you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. Coming up tonight, we'll be discussing the President of the United States and his resistance thus far to a peaceful transfer of power. We'll also be talking about the rise in cases of coronavirus to some 10 million cases in the US alone right now. And we'll focus on the Voices of Service, a military group of veterans who are serving their country through music and bridging the racial divide. That's coming up, which also leads me to my opening observations. This is Veterans Day. Happy veterans to each and every one of you who have served in the military. The great Daniel Chappie James, General Daniel Chappie James, was a Tuskegee Airman, and he went on to become a general of the United States Air Force. He once stated this about America. He said, "The strength of the United States of America lies in its unity. It lies in free men, blessed and ordained with the rights of freedom, working to provide, build, enjoy, and grow. Those who would subvert us or any free people try to disrupt this unity by breaking the small parts from the whole, driving in the wedges of fear and discontent." Certainly, in America today, there are certain leaders who need to hear what General Chappie James stated and take heed to it before subverting this country into fear and discontent. And those are my opening observations. Top of mind right now is what the president is doing in terms of his um, displeasure with the outcome of the election and the fact that he's avoided a peaceful transition of power. And then you see the dismantling of what's going on throughout the Defense Department. It causes quite a bit of concern. So I thought I'd bring in the West Coast Connection to weigh in on this. Attorneys Mark Harris and Timothy Allen Simon. Gentlemen, what is going on here? Because there is the concern about the shakeup at the Defense Department. As you know, this president has talked about using federal troops in the past to quell disturbances in the United States. And do you have any concerns about this at all?
We should be concerned. First, Kelly, I think it's very appropriate for us to be talking about this on Veterans Day. I want to wish a happy Veterans Day to America, to all of us who have parents and in-laws, older brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts who've served in the military. My dad was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and my father-in-law was a master sergeant in the Air Force. So happy Veterans Day to America.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me the most is what you said, the inference, the potential inference that the reason why the former defense secretary was terminated at this point, which is only at best less than 2 months to go in this administration, is because the person who the president wants to replace him with will do his bidding. And his bidding may very well be to put up some level of resistance to his departure from the White House. We should all be troubled by that. I wouldn't put anything past this petulant president that we have. Within the next 60 days, this thing will be resolved one way or the other, plus or minus 60 days, closer to 70 days on January 20th. And I saw Joe Biden yesterday say we have to continue to be patient. I'm not concerned about it, but I'm concerned about it. And I think your viewers should be concerned about it.
Absolutely. And Timothy, rightfully so, and to be concerned about what's going on in this White House and messing with the Defense Department and the people coming in. I mean, the one person who's coming in has actually looked at President Obama in the past and basically went on to call President Obama a terrorist.
This is troubling. If Kelly, if I could, and thank you for having us on again. I want to take a moment and thank my father, who was a World War II veteran, was part of the cleanup operation of the tragic Port Chicago explosion in Concord, California, that killed hundreds of African-American naval, enlisted and in some cases officers. And I particularly want to extend a happy Veterans Day to those who fought abroad for freedom but didn't have freedom at home. It is still an unbelievable show of patriotism in my humble, estimation. Yes, these changes that are being made within the administration indicate a pattern of a president, a lame duck president, for all practical purposes, that does not want to leave office. If I'm correct, the Electoral College convenes on December 13th. I may have that date wrong. I've said it before, the mechanisms are in place to transfer government. Foreign leaders are calling President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. and extending their congratulations and looking forward to working with him and Vice President Harris going forward. So the president is making a Hail Mary attempt to try to subvert this process. And, yes, there's always an odds or possibility, a Las Vegas chance that it could occur. But, I think the repercussions would be damaging to this country and very destructive to my former party, the Republican Party.
And on that note, the Republican Party, where is it right now? Because quite a few of the Republicans, like William Barr, the Attorney General, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, it appears that many people on that side of the aisle are agreeing with this president in terms of moving forward with what may turn out to be a very difficult thing for America to bear.
We had the Secretary of State of the United States make the statement yesterday that they're preparing for the second Trump administration. That is disaster. That is disaster. Here is the face and the voice of America abroad, the face and the voice of America throughout the rest of the world. Now, some might try to trivialize what he said as a joke. I took him very seriously. I don't think it was funny for the Secretary of State. And if it is, he's a grown A man. He shouldn't be joking about things that serious, Kelly. And we should hold him accountable for doing that. I think that the Republican Party has become the party of Donald Trump. And that's a sad reality. And unfortunately, I think they'll go along as he gets along relative to moving this process forward to try to retain the presidency. I'm most concerned with the fact he hasn't been public in the last several days. When he's not public and he's not talking, that's serious business as far as I'm concerned. I believe he's plotting. And so I don't think it's trivial. I don't think we should take it lightly. I think these moves will potentially have consequence, and America needs to stand ready to deal with the consequences of his potential actions.
Look, we're going to take a break. When we return, I want to talk about another aspect in all of this and the fact that the president did receive a great deal of support from Americans. But in particular, it's what that support is saying that perhaps is fueling the fire in his belly to keep moving forward to denounce the election results. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to the program. I'm talking to attorneys Timothy Allen Simon and Mark Harris, West Coast Connection in the House. And we are honoring veterans today. We want to make note of that. But at the same time, we are dealing with our country as it stands right now. As many of you know, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are waiting to transition into the White House. January 20th is Inauguration Day. But we have the current president of the United States who is denouncing this election, telling everyone that he's won and that he got all of the votes. And now, gentlemen, there's the question about the integrity of this election coming from the right. And I do mean the hard right. Evangelicals even sending out messages talking about that this election has been stolen by the Democrats and questioning the results of the election. Tell me about that, because it's coming from all sources within the evangelical movement as they are questioning the integrity of this election and giving Donald Trump more fuel to his fire.
I would say that, to the evangelicals and Republicans, I think I've heard Attorney Harris say this, you're talking loud and saying nothing. There are Republicans who won in these states that are being questioned. Many of these states that are being questioned, or at least, Georgia, for example, has a Republican Secretary of State, Republican local officials, Republican voting monitors. So it's like, okay, so Donald Trump is mad, so everybody has to go down. It just does not work that way. At the same time, and we've discussed this before, The president, like others, has a due process right. He has a right to his day in court. The issue is you have to bring the evidence. Now, they can make a decision as to whether they want to bring the evidence public or they're going to take the evidence into court. I believe that the motive is to rev up his base, to rev up those who embrace QAnon, who embrace other conspiracy theories, in order to create the kind of division in this country and to sustain it until the next series of elections.
Mark, we saw one article that talked about, I mean, it went all the way back to the days of John Kennedy winning the election and actually casting aspersions against that, stating that Kennedy had a deal with the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois, that they swung the vote his way by counting the ballots after the election. When you see things like that, where it's undermining the trust that we have in the electoral process, and Republicans and evangelicals have done this quite a bit lately when things have not gone their way. And it's quite disconcerting, especially when Black Americans too have a great deal of faith in God we trust.
But we have to cast the blame where the blame should be cast, Kelly. I hear what the president has said about how dare the Democrats talk about challenging my strategy relative to the vote when they spent 3.5 years trying to prosecute me for Russiagate. He's right about that. I mean, it's disingenuous for Democrats now to cry about this president casting some aspersions on the democratic voting process of the United States, when for 3+ years they challenged the same process relative to allegations of manipulation by the Russians that could not be proven, at least not to the culminating act of removing the president from office. Let's all grow up. I said when we talked yesterday that we have to look in the mirror at ourselves. Democrats have to look in the mirror. Republicans, this is the United States of America. On Veterans Day, maybe we should all take a pause and remember that this won't end well if we keep challenging one another in what I consider to be out of bounds ways. I think, to Commissioner Simon's point, when you have Republicans that are now feasting and feeding on themselves, you've got the Republican Secretary of State in Georgia, who Republicans have called for him to step down because they don't like the potential outcome of the vote in Georgia. What are we doing here? What is this? This has nothing to do with substance. Now it's just a matter of the old Adam Sandler movie that he did, where he was playing with a child in a game called I Win, meaning whatever the kid did, the kid always said, I win. That's where we are in America right now. People just care about winning. They don't care about process.
And we'll return in just a moment to talk more about that and what this election means to African Americans and why what's going on right now is important to take note of and to watch very closely. Back with more after this. Welcome back to the program. We're talking about a very serious situation going on right now. I think about just a couple of days ago on Saturday, there was jubilation in the streets of America, but there was also consternation in the streets of America because this vote for the president has gone. It's been a very tight, close election. So many people turning out to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the popular vote. Consequently also winning the larger share of the electoral college. And then, of course, a lot of people coming out to support the current president, Donald Trump. And he was projected not to be the winner. And instead of having a peaceful transition of power, there's a large resistance going on. And I'm bringing in every factor of this, the Republican factor, the Democrat factor, the evangelical factor, because that is a large voting bloc. But my good friends from the West Coast, attorneys Mark Harris and Timothy Allen Simon, they call it like they see it. And what I like about what both of you are talking about is that we have to come to grips with ourselves. We can't always point the finger at the president or at Joe Biden or at the left or at the right, but at ourselves. Help me help others understand why this is so important to Black Americans, in particular, since Joe Biden as president-elect, has stated very clearly that there is institutional racism in this country, The systemic racism must be dealt with. And then he's also gone on to say that we have to heal the soul of America.
You know, one of the challenges, Kelly, as a proud member of the administration of Bill Clinton, it was the absolute proudest moment of my life professionally was to be a part of his administration. I was the deputy chief of staff at the United States Department of Commerce under the late Ron Brown, an icon in American history. And one of the things that was very clear is presidents, through their people and through their policies, and quite honestly, through the pocketbook, affect people's lives. Black America has to really look carefully and demand that President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris put those 3 Ps, if you will, into practice. That the people who are appointed to high office are African American. That the policies that this administration moves forward will be an enhancement to the lives and the lifestyle of Black America. And finally, that the purse strings, that the money necessary to move those forward will be in place. Of course, in tandem with Congress, the president acts in that area. I am disappointed that our administration, the Clinton administration, had more African American appointees than any administration in the history of this country, including Obama 1 and Obama 2. And I just hope that this whole shenanigans, this kabuki theater that the president is moving forward, doesn't scare President-elect Biden off of a commitment to make sure that the lives of Black America are enhanced by his policies relative to the appointments that he makes and the policies that this administration embraces.
Timothy, what does it mean when you hear Republicans say that if this process goes forward and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris take on the position of leadership in this country, that it would be the undoing and ruination of the Republican Party?
Well, it's the migration of the dog whistle to the bullhorn. The fact is that everything that President Trump complained that would come under a Biden administration happened under his administration in terms of the unrest and the division and the just plain insanity that transpired over the course of now close to 4 years. I think Republicans need to step back and look at how do they regain the soul of the party of Lincoln. Unfortunately, I'm not optimistic in that regard. Just the number of popular votes that President Trump received in this country tells you where most Republicans stand regarding his conduct and his policies. As Mark Harris said, his blatant failure to have any degree of diversity within the top positions of government, something that even the George W. Bush administration was very cognizant of. Mark, I don't know how to compare the data with the Clinton administration, but George W. Bush had not only key, but African-American appointments up and down his administration. But I do believe that it's time for, President-elect Biden, who has addressed the coronavirus, who is today, I understand, looking at the national security issues. But don't let too much grass grow under your feet before you sit down with the African-American community and talk about the ways that you're going to implement your platform and policies. And in my role as a chair of the African-American Chamber here in California, that would mean the businesses, both big and small. How are they going to be a part of this great recovery that I'm anticipating? I do believe that there is a pent-up demand in this country that's being forestalled, by the pandemic. How are we going to make sure that there are the proper loan guarantees to make sure that we are part of the healthcare solution, that we are part of the food desert solution, that we're a part of the manufacturing solution, that we're a part of the clean energy solution? All of these things really need to be laid out with the proper mechanisms to ensure that it's not just a great speech, it's not just something written on a platform, but it's something that we're going to see make a difference in our lives and the lives of our families.
To quote Ice Cube, got to put pressure on both parties. Whoever becomes president, the pressure has to be there to not marginalize, forget, or overlook the contributions, the significant contributions of the African-American community. Gentlemen, it's been a tough conversation, obviously, but there's a lot of tough things going on right now. We got to address these things, or why are we here? Attorneys Mark Harris and Timothy Allen Simon, appreciate and love you both so much, and thank you. God bless you and all that you do.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
When we return, we're talking about the coronavirus with Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner and how dire the situation is. That's next. And welcome back to the program. Joining me now is ER physician, Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner. He operates here in the Washington, D.C. area, the nation's capital. And doctor, you know, we're going through a very tough time. It was always predicted by Johns Hopkins University, as well as Dr. Anthony Fauci, that we would see the worst before we would see COVID-19 improve. But no one, I think, really anticipated that we would reach more than 10 million COVID cases in this country, and the death toll continues to rise as well. Does this trouble you? Because you're right there on the front lines.
It is actually very troubling, but not surprising, because this was predicted that if we didn't make certain efforts, that we were going to see a rise in cases, especially now that the flu season is coming. So while this is unfortunate, we saw it coming.
What's your message to America right now as a doctor, an ER physician? You see COVID cases coming in, and there's some hospitals throughout this country that are just overburdened now. What's your message to America?
My message is that things are as bleak as they appear, but that doesn't mean that that you're going to die. Meaning that there's still steps that we can take, that you can take, that will prevent you from getting COVID. For instance, I know everyone's talked about this vaccine, and it's coming at some point. But in the meantime, every single model has shown that if people just start wearing a mask, we can decrease this by 80%. I know people are tired of hearing that, but now it's time for leadership. Individuals need to step up and become ambassadors of masks, meaning just spread the word and call people out. Wear your mask and socially distance.
You know, that's the message that's been going out, and the president of the United States politicized it. And during the campaign, he kept saying, we're rounding the curve, we're rounding the curve. And here we are rounding the curve towards a train wreck. It's good that the vaccine is on the horizon, but like you said, wearing a mask, and yet I find that people are not adhering to that. What is the disconnect?
The disconnect is the lack of leadership around it. But I think that now that the campaigns are over and we have a clear president, what I would encourage people, no matter what race, color, culture, put all your biases to the side. And I promise you that you can bring them back out, but we have to get past this crisis. And the crisis and the clear message is that the science works. Socially distancing, wearing your mask, staying away from one another, all those are how we're going to save our lives. And there's one other thing: be mindful about your mental health and mental health of others, because that's the second pandemic going on, is that there's this mental health issue. But in the meantime, again, it's going to get bleak, but it doesn't mean that we will not overcome this.
I want to take a break, and I want you to hold that thought about mental health, the mental health aspects of this, which is quite alarming. We'll be back with more of Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner right after the break. And welcome back to the program. I'm talking to ER physician Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner, who operates his practice here in the nation's capital. And you deal with a lot of different hospitals, a lot of different patients in not only COVID-19 cases, but certainly emergency cases. You alluded to something earlier, and that was the mental health aspects of all of this COVID-19. And as you know, quite a few people have gone through election stress, and they've been going through simultaneously with that COVID-19 fatigue. How do we protect ourselves and our loved ones from the mental stress of COVID fatigue?
That is a great question. One simple part that we can do is that acknowledge to yourself, acknowledge to your family that, hey, if we do what we're supposed to do, we are going to be fine. Meaning what we just talked about, the wearing the mask, so forth and so on. But the other thing is, do mental check-ins. it can be as simple as a phone call to a friend. Say, hey, how are you doing today? Studies are very clear that people who are in regular contact with those who care about them do much better. And then be gentle with yourself, meaning that it's okay to feel a little stressed. It's okay to feel a little anxious at times, but don't stay there. You've got to move past that and always be looking towards tomorrow, because this will end at some point.
Do you also recommend exercise? I mean, I try to walk every day. I try to do some yoga. Exercise is very good, I think, for breaking the pattern or the mental duress as well as the physical stress that your body goes through just by staying indoors.
Whoa, Mr. Wright, you hit the nail on the head. Obviously, the CDC recommendation for the next one is exercise is absolutely key. It gives your chance, it gives your mind a break. It gives you a way of releasing some of that stress. And then the third thing, and I would encourage everyone to do this, turn the TV off regularly. Limit the amount of TV you are watching, especially as it relates to COVID. Even in my own practice, even in my own life, I make sure I turn that TV off for most of the day and limit the amount of COVID information that I have coming in from the television, because you're not going to admit it can get scary if you sit there and watch it all day.
Doc, we thank you for that. Dr. Joffrey Mount Varner, ER physician here in the nation's capital. Before I let you go, today is Veterans Day. There are a lot of veterans out there, particularly who have served in harm's way, and they've come back and they're still dealing with all the issues of the day. I just wanted to know what you think about our veterans.
I have a profound love for the veterans. In fact, one of the hospitals where I work, it is a VA, and veterans are true heroes. And I'm so glad that Biden is here, because some of the VAs were not as equipped and ready for COVID, and the VAs would treat our vets. But now that the Biden-Harris team is here, I am expecting that care to improve even more. And one other thing, Kelly, I think that what you do is key. I mean, you keeping your audience informed, letting them know the facts, having people on who encourage them, that plays a humongous role. So I like to thank you for what you do for the community as well.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you always. Dr. Joffrey Mount Varner, I do appreciate that. And passing on blessings to you and your family, and this Veterans Day. And thanks for the good advice about how we deal with COVID. Mask up, COVID down. Dr. Joffrey Mount Varner, thank you, sir. And welcome back to the program. It was in May of this year that we introduced to you the Voices of Service. They were here for our Memorial Day program. We do a reprise of that presentation for tonight's Veterans Day program. Here now are the members of the Voices of Service. Sergeant Major Crystal Reams, first of all, thank you for your service. And I wanted to ask you, Sergeant Major Reams, how this all began for you, your military career, and why you chose to dedicate most of your adult life in service to this nation.
So thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. And I'm happy to be here with my brothers. As you know, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, and I'm happy to be here to talk about it. So for me, it started quite simply. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I grew up in a single parent home, just my mother. And after completing some college, I realized that I didn't feel like I had a purpose, and I needed to seek some purpose. And so I joined the National Guard first and went to basic training in AIT and loved the Army. So I stayed. Ultimately, my goal was, and this is kind of a foreshadowing event, but ultimately my goal was to protect my mother, who was so very special to me, to allow her to walk off her step and be free. walk anywhere she wants to be, do anything she wants to be, do anything she wants to do, and just have freedom. And I wanted that for the rest of my colleagues, my friends, my family. But that's the simple place where it started. And hence 20 years later, here I am, still continuing to serve. I believe service is the ultimate gratitude, believe it or not. I think you get more from service than you do from getting. So that's where it all started for me.
Many people here in America are not familiar with the sacrifice that you have to bring to that kind of environment. And having covered the war in Iraq myself, and having been there in Baghdad and all over the country during that time, the one thing I walked away with, Sergeant Major, was this ultimate respect for an appreciation, deep appreciation for what our men and women in uniform do, even in a humanitarian crisis. And in the midst of that war, and I'll point this out as we go on, I saw you're war fighting, but you're also providing humanitarian support to the very enemy that we're engaged with. That was amazing.
Yes. It's amazing give and take. And as you're speaking, I one of the things that comes to mind for me, especially being a female and being a woman, is the amount of sacrifice it takes to give both of those. And specifically for me, I remember really being fond and close to a lot of the women who left children behind, or who had to, most folks don't know, but as service members, you can't be a single parent. You legitimately have to give up custody of your children.
That's right.
In the event that something happens. And to see the amount of folks who are willing to put that aside, to know that ultimately they're fighting for democracy and freedom, but they're giving up that same very thing in order to give you democracy and freedom, is a mind-blowing fact. And, mothers and even fathers who miss birthdays and the things that we take for granted. To me, that's a largely important fact in understanding what it is you sacrifice for your country.
It was a great privilege for me to have the option to join the military. I was in college at the time. I had gone through ROTC at Hampton University, and it wasn't for me, believe it or not. I had too much, I wasn't really hood or street, but I had too much fight in me to be an officer. And that's no disrespect to anyone who can do it. It wasn't cut out for me to do that. And lo and behold, 1 year later, I ended up becoming a communicator. I was a combat signal. And the reason that I went into the military is because my parents were not initially 100% supportive of music, because, the music industry is kind of tough. And my dad was very talented, and he was doing the math on record sales, and you only make this, but if you're a teacher, you can make more and have a bigger impact. And so it kind of shaped me. So going into communications allowed me, one, I had to use my voice, so I had to be able to communicate.
Welcome back to the program. So I'm having a great time. I'm talking to a wonderful group of men and lady. They are the voices of service. And many of you saw them on national television when they were in season 14 of America's Got Talent, and they went on to place 5th in that. Even Simon Cowell had to look back and say, wow, these guys are really great. But their message is even greater. And they do it through their music, but they also do it through their lives individually. We've already spoken to Sergeant Major Crystal Reams and Master Sergeant Caleb Green. Now we want to talk to retired Staff Sergeant Ron Henry. And Ron, what was it like for you? I mean, I've asked your colleagues what it was like to have that incentive to get into the military. What makes a man say, I'm going to raise my right hand to protect and serve the Constitution of the United States and all of the inhabitants of America?
When you're in college one year and you're failing college, so you go in the military. No, no, just
And that says it all. Boy, get yourself together and jump in Uncle Sam's military.
Yes, go to war or go to jail. So yeah, but no. On a serious note, I graduated from a small town, Plant City, Florida, Plant City High School. That city is a very patriotic city. Florida is a very patriotic state.
It is.
So yeah, I joined the Army in 1988 after graduating high school, and I did go to that 1 year of college, and all I did was party and have fun. And I was like, well, this is not the avenue that I need to take, so I'm going to divert. The military made me the man that I am today. Some have bled on foreign land that we may live to be free. And I'm grateful for that. I don't take it lightly because I have been in situations where I've lost comrades. I've lost the ones that I've loved. And I know what it's like. I've been there, and we've all been there. We've all got the t-shirt with our names on it. And so through all those experiences, you have to learn how to channel all of that, how to channel losing a loved one and losing comrades. And what has helped me is music, which is the reason why we're here today as well. You know, we use music to celebrate the lives of our comrades, you know, like My Country 'Tis of Thee and the Star Spangled Banner and God Bless America. These are the type of songs that commemorate why we're doing what we're doing and why we celebrate Memorial Day. So forgive me, I'm the most emotional one of the group. So
wait a minute, he's gonna cry.
He gonna cry.
Come on now. Come on now.
So
If you must, brother, go ahead.
yeah, I'm trying to hold it in, but it just means a lot to me, and I just feel like the success that this group has had today.
It's okay, man.
It has brought us to recognize the spirit of our fallen comrades, men and women, who has dedicated their lives that we may be free. And so I'm grateful, and it's important that we all learn to be transparent. Every person, every American, that we learn to be transparent. You may not have been, you know, for those Americans who may not have joined the military, you may have done something in your community, in your neighborhood, to make this country great. That's what it's all about.
My military story was unusual, like most stories are. You know, I didn't join specifically for patriotic reasons initially. I had a child. I was just finished with high school, and I had a child, and I needed money, and I needed to figure out a way to take care of my daughter. And so my mom, she suggested, she said, have you ever thought about joining the Army? And I was like, you know what? Actually, I haven't. And I wasn't opposed to it. I just had never thought about it. And the funny story behind that is when, you know, the whole family's talking about, you know, me joining the military and trying to take care of things. And my grandfather says, you can join any branch of the service, but you can't join the Marines. I was like, why not the Marines? He said, because they're crazy. I was like, wow. Now the truth of the matter is, and to my Marine brethren, after having joined the Army and working with all branches of service, I would have to say that the Army got some crazy folks too. So, you know, they're in good company. They're in good company.
Having served in the Army, I can agree with you.
Absolutely. So I joined in 1991 initially, and like Caleb, I was a commo soldier, a communication soldier. So the mantra there was shoot, move, and communicate. So we learned a variety of things in that realm, and the change that happened to me, I think the launching point for a lot of things for me that from as far as my military career goes in 2004 is when I became a medic. I actually reclassed into a different MOS, and I became a medic / licensed practical nurse. So you have to become a medic first, and then you go to nursing school through the Army, and having gone through that training and learning, just seeing the sacrifices that people make to take care of others. You do it because you have a heart for people and a compassion for people, and that you hope that maybe some small action that you do might be able to change their heart and their minds towards towards the American people. So I mean, I could say that this career has been quite a ride, and the icing on the cake for me was, of course, Voices of Service. Having this situation come up, it seems like to most people like out of nowhere, but it's been a 7-year, almost 8-year journey now, and we have been learning how to be better musicians. We've also been learning how to care more for people, and also learning the fact that the impact of music and what it does for people and what it can do for what it's done for us. We all started off as people that love music, but I think it's kind of for me, it's kind of morphed into something that now it has become, as Ron said, it's become a passion. It's a passion to bring that hope and to deliver that hope to people, and to see the smiles on people's faces, and then when they give it back to us and they show us that you guys are making an impact and you're helping, and you're helping people and you're healing people. That is, I can't tell you, Kelly, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
We'll be back with more after the break. And welcome back to the program. I'd like to thank all of the guests who appeared on tonight's show, and I especially want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out to watch. In closing, I want to remember Veterans Day and what Colin Powell, the former Secretary of State and General of the United States Army, once stated. He says, "Indeed, we're strongest when the face of America isn't only a soldier carrying a gun, but also a diplomat negotiating peace, a Peace Corps volunteer bringing clean water to a village, or a relief worker stepping off a cargo plane as floodwaters rise." Colin Powell gets it right. America is a country of service, and it's important that we continue to serve each other, to be righted, ignited, and united, to serve with love, freedom, and peace. Good night.
See, I'm